So we've got the other founding father of the Den up here. We've got Cal, we've had Nat. So Cal, obviously, Retropower, hugely successful brand that you've built up over the last years.
15 years.
15 wow.
years, yeah. Well, I don't think we're really aware of this. This today is a bit of an eye-opener, I must admit.
Yeah, I bet.
You see the numbers on YouTube, you'll know this as well, but you see the numbers on YouTube and you don't really translate that into actual people who would come to an event.
Yeah,
and then I'm literally
faces.
walking around here and so many people are coming up to me and saying, I love what you do, I love watching your videos.
It's great.
So it's amazing. And actually that's one of the things we wanted to do. That's why we've got this lounge area in the Den, is that we're so focused on work at Retropower and building cars that a little bit of the enjoyment had gone out of it, because we'd knuckle down on a car and then it'd just go to the customer at the end of it, and that ability to show the stuff off that we've done is one of the reasons we've got this place, and to do things like this, maybe on a slightly smaller scale, but things like this, so we can just invite people down to look at the cars we've built, is one of the functions. And
so that is to reiterate, the difference between Retropower and the Den, which this event is all about launching, is because Retropower is about building a fresh car, bespoke from the ground up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's come on over the years. It wasn't at the start.
Yeah.
Ooh,
look, it's a tray of
bourbon biscuit.
No, I've actually had a few, but they were good.
He's an overqualified waiter, isn't he?
He's an extremely overqualified waiter.
I'm going to place this biscuit here.
Place the biscuit
for the optimum time when I really need it. But yes, Retropower started out just doing smaller jobs, and it's just built up to knowing that we're always going to be doing full start-to-finish car builds. But this is a reset here where we can take on the standalone jobs, and we've learned over the years which jobs work standalone and which inevitably escalate into a full restoration. So we know where to draw the line. It's a really exciting thing. It's extremely stressful at the moment as well.
But that's because you've just started it, and Retropower started off as 3 of you or 4 of you.
Yeah. And we still have. So obviously it started as Nat and I, but our first 3 employees are still there.
Are they?
Yeah. And the team, and we just never envisaged it would ever get to the size it's at.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So Gaz was our first employee, who is still in the body shop. Mark was our second employee. Stu was our third employee, and they're all still there.
So when Gaz has been with you for 20 years, does he get like a carbon fibre G-Shock?
He'll get a cheap fake Rolex.
He'll get a Folex.
A Folex.
You will do this, Gaz. This will happen. So I wanted to talk a bit more.
I tell you what, Mark did actually leave us for a bit. He emigrated to France for a bit, but it didn't work out, so he came back.
Yeah.
But we did give him a leaving gift, which was a bottle opener that we laser cut in the shape of a cock and balls.
Oh. Isn't that rather nice?
Now, whilst formulating that in my head, I was thinking, I wonder if my parents are still standing outside, but hopefully not. Well, I can say these words, I'm a grown-up.
So on the one hand, they ground up build bespoke resto mods, and on the other, if you want a CNC machine cock and balls, you're more than welcome. What I wanted to talk to you about, Cal, is really, I guess, your backstory a bit more, because the more I live in this car world of ours, and as enjoyable as seeing the metal is, it's always the backstory of the cars and the people who drive those cars and what they're about and how they come through this journey of life. So your first car, I have written here, was a Mark 1 Vauxhall Astra. You and your brother, you're proper General Motors warriors back in the day,
This was actually bought by my parents owned basically an old farmhouse, and it had a sort of acre-sized field at the back of it. And amazingly, perhaps predicting that I was desperate to drive something at the time, they actually bought me a Mark 1 Astra when I was like probably 15.
What?
To just thrash around the field behind the house. And it was a 1300S, which now would probably be considered a classic, and it would be sacrilege. But we had this reasonably good, I think, 2-door hatch Mark 1 Astra 1300S, which we just smashed it off trees until it was completely broken, and then I don't even know what happened to it. I'm guessing it got scrapped. But yes, that was technically my first car. And then my first car, actually having passed my test, was a Ford Sierra.
Of course.
Incredibly boring, but
did you do anything to the Sierra?
I did a lot to it, yeah, including eventually crashing it. But yeah, we put a 2-litre Pinto with like a Piper 285 cam in it. The usual thing you did on a Pinto as well was use the 38 D-gas carb from a 3-litre Capri, standard thing back then. So put that on it, lowered it, different stiffer suspension on it.
Audio? Any audio?
I think that was it. Oh yes, Jan Speed exhaust, probably the usual brand. Yeah. It was all the usual boy racer stuff you do then. And then actually thinking about it, I didn't crash it. I was given another Sierra by my mum, so I scrapped the first one, even though it was probably perfectly good. Then promptly crashed the one I'd been given. So,
oh what? Yeah. You absolute flute!
I know. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So Sierras. You didn't used to work. I remember speaking to you ages ago, and you told me that you used to manage a hotel.
Yes.
Is that right? You've had a very eclectic selection
the story,
of jobs.
I mean, I've always been into cars, literally from, honestly, as long as I can remember. I mean, when I was at primary school, I remember doing this product design project, and I basically imagined this Mark 1 MR2 but modified, and I got a model kit and kind of stuck bits on it and made it look modified. And I was at primary school at the time, and did this little brochure. It was just bits of printed paper and cut magazine articles crudely glued in, but it was basically a brochure for this car that I'd envisaged. And it just honestly stemmed from there, the entire car interest. I've lost my train of thought. What was the question?
Well, the train of thought was other jobs you've done.
Oh yes, the hotel. That was it.
Prior to Retropower, including running a hotel.
So yeah, the hotel thing was a great introduction, I guess, to interacting with people. That's probably the best way to describe it. So off the back, when I was 16, I think I became a glass collector in a hotel, and then I graduated up to being a barman, and then later on a bar manager. And it was quite a big sort of corporate events centre. And I met a lot of really cool people there, people who I'm still friends with today. In fact, I'm going on a weekend away next weekend with a number of people that I work with at that hotel. But I think the thing it really taught me was just interaction with people. And little did I know, one day I might be organising an event where actually I've used a lot of the things I picked up there. Oh my goodness, I'm looking outside and
so you can probably
the rain
hear
is
the
really
rain drumming
quite
down
unpleasant
on the
right now.
Roof of, it's actually bright out there. I know I'm sounding suddenly even more English by going,
it's brightening up.
It's pissing with rain, but it is brightly pissing with rain. Which means it's busier in here than it was prior to this.
I feel like Mr. Ariel Atom's seat might be a swimming pool right now.
Well, the Ariel Atom seat, I think we're all going to chip in and lend him some of the cushions off here, and that's definitely thunder and lightning.
Oh dear.
Yeah. However, let's not
moving
digress.
On from the rain.
So, you're the sort of, or have been certainly the main face of Retropower in terms of going through with the customer the vision of what they want, trying to download their mind of like, what do you want this car to be and do. And I know that your brother's more the engineering mind,
the mad professor,
and you're the kind of like zoom out and like, what's the overall aesthetic of this, what's the there's a cool dynamic. I mean, he may have said the same. In the early days it probably lent to the odd frictional moment, and these days it just works perfectly with it. You know, he's always focused on how something's going to work, and I tend to be more focused on how it's going to look, and the two kind of combine. I'm getting so distracted by the rain. The two combine, really well these days, and that's what it's all about. And we'll discuss things back and forth a lot. But what perhaps in the early days might have turned into a heated argument, these days is just us respecting each other. And I'll say, well, but I understand it's got to work like that. And plain to
can we find a way that it can also look like this? And there's that famous saying, isn't there, which I can't remember at all, but the one about elegant engineering just being, form that comes from function. And that's what it's all about. It's trying to set out to make something that works well, and just as a byproduct of the design to make it work well being good, it also looks good. So in terms of like cars, so you've worked at a hotel. You used to do some DJing and producing. I did. That was a huge hobby of mine. So I used to be into hard dance music, basically happy hardcore.
You were into happy hardcore?
Massively so, massively so. In the era when it was becoming less about squeaky voices and more fast-paced trance, I suppose, would be the better description. So late 90s. I got into it. I got into it to the point where I kind of set up a basic production setup for it, although I couldn't afford much at the time, and started just writing tunes constantly. And then I started sending those tunes out to people, and eventually a couple of label owners started taking interest, and I built up a good relationship with a particular record label owner at the time. And we started releasing tunes. And,
really?
I got quite a few. I'd say maybe 12 releases.
Really?
And then got into the DJing scene. So, do you remember the Bonkers compilation albums?
Yes.
So DJ Sharky. So it was his label. And I ended up on several of the Bonkers compilations and DJing alongside people like Sharky, Kevin Energy, Scott Brown, Hixie is probably quite a big name from the day. And I did gigs in London and various, but Milton Keynes was always a big one, so down there. And then I started my own night in Leicester as well, so we used to promote a little drum and bass and happy hardcore night, so it had one floor for one genre, another floor for another.
I would have definitely been the drum and bass floor, personally.
Which was great, and again, like the same friends that I met through the hotel, we then, did that night together. So the guy, one of the guys I'm going to see this coming weekend, is the guy that I did that club night with. He organised the drum and bass, I organised the hardcore. And it was great. I absolutely loved those days. But it was also around the time of Napster kicking off, and all of the labels were struggling. And the guy who was running the label I was with just got absolutely disillusioned with it all, and basically just stopped his label, because I think the absolute nail in the coffin for him, or the straw that broke the camel's back is a better saying, was that he'd released a white label which only goes to other DJs, and that white label ended up on Napster. And he was like, well, even the DJs who I'm giving these tunes to are putting them on, giving them away. So there was no money to be made in it anymore. Whereas a few years earlier, it was small money we were talking about, but it was still quite a big scene.
Yeah.
And that kind of disillusioned me about it a bit as well. And I kind of stepped away from it, and then things kicked in. Started Retropower a few years later.
So different.
But
happy hardcore DJ production.
Like a load of music production. Well, I've been buying more music production equipment recently, in the hope that one day I can get back into doing more of that again. And I still have a massive vinyl collection, kind of probably a mix 50-50 of trance and hardcore. I still love to play that stuff, but because I've got two young children and I'm running now 2 businesses and organising events like this, the time to do that is relatively minimal.
Can I, maybe at the Den, once in a blue moon, we can have a rave? We can have a rave night.
A massive rave, yeah, absolutely. I'm
a wonderful idea. We'll probably have to move these sofas out a little bit, and the rug.
Move all the cars out, just have a rave.
That sounds like a great idea. I've just remembered that actually behind me are some old school hi-fi separates here, and the Wharfdale speakers that I have gifted to the Den.
He keeps mentioning this. I'm sure he's angling for something in return.
I'm not angling. I'm not.
It's almost as if I could potentially do some work on an Austin Allegro.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
See you, bye.
So, yeah, exactly. Cars that you currently own, because I know, having spoken to your brother, you work on a lot of other people's projects. These builds, Retropower builds, are hugely time consuming. This is not a high volume game that you're in. So your cars probably fall to the back of the queue.
Just a bit, yes.
And which can be very frustrating, I can imagine. I've had a small taste of it.
Yes.
You currently own a 1976 Toyota Celica liftback.
I do, and that one is in fine fettle. That one. It's one of the, and here's the key. I didn't take it apart. And that is literally it. Like, if you look at all my cars, the ones I can enjoy, I haven't touched. I've just bought them and used them.
And just maintained them.
Just used them. So the Celica, it's gorgeous. It's this...
Would you go as far as to say the Celica's a sweet, sweet car?
I would say it's a sweet, sweet car.
Okay.
So this just stunning fastback thing. I love the shape of it. It's almost completely standard. It's got some Watanabe 8-spoke kind of wheels, which is kind of the period mod that everybody did to them. Other than that, and a slight drop on the suspension, it's pretty much standard. It's done 32,000 miles, I think.
Is that all?
Interior's still completely original. It's had an exterior paint job before I got it, but it's essentially unrestored. And the engine bay is still original paint, original components. I did the clutch in it not too long ago, and the clutch that I took out was the original clutch, which was pretty cool. So yeah, that's one of the ones that is still
that's good and
drivable. I do have an E30 Touring, which is just outside the door, actually. Yeah, the red one.
Yeah.
So, which is almost ready to be used. I basically need to finish putting the interior in it, change the alternator, and probably replace the fluids in it. But that's the state it's been in for probably the last year.
Really?
So that gives you an idea of the progress I can achieve on that.
Well, you're a family man, so that's your sort of family retro. The E30
that is what I'm hoping it will eventually be.
Yeah.
It can become the daily car. And that, speaking of the daily car, Caroline, my wife's daily car at the minute, is a 1996 Honda Legend, which... You well know this. I'm absolutely obsessed with this car. I don't know why.
Legends.
I don't know why. But I've driven all sorts of kind of 90s executive cars, and for whatever reason, I just fell in love with that one. And I bought it just to do a trip to Le Mans Classic in comfort. Loved it so much, I've had it ever since.
Is that what it was?
I've probably owned that car longer than any other car I've owned.
You've had that years.
Yeah, I think probably went to Le Mans Classic. It was before COVID, well before, so probably 2018, 2017, something like that. And that doesn't sound that long ago, but by my standards, that's an eternity to own a car.
Yeah, no, and I know how much you love it, because we regularly exchange WhatsApps about Honda Legend appreciation.
Looks terrible, is absolutely awesome.
You've also got Peugeot 309 GTI.
I do, and that's in here. Actually, it's under a cover at the back here, but yes, I have a Miami Blue 309 GTI two-door with an MI16 engine in it, which is slightly further away from being done. So that one, I really need to go through it completely mechanically, put all the interior back in, which is just a case of putting it back in. But that doesn't seem too bad, but if you think about the progress I've made on the E30 in the last year, that's about 10 years progress.
Oh, gosh.
So,
I can't talk.
No.
I can't talk. E36 BM Coupe?
Yeah, so you know what I did with that? Guess.
Took it apart?
Yes, it was a perfectly functional working car.
You absolutely
I took it apart, and now it's remained apart ever since. So the idea with that, it was going to be a track car. This is such a familiar story, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to make a track car.
I know.
It was going to be a track car, I'm going to cage it. I was going to put a supercharged V8 in it. And I got
BMW V8.
I've got the BMW 4.4 V8. I've got an Eaton supercharger that's going to go on it. But of course, if you consider the amount of engineering that's going to take and the progress I've made on my other cars, it's an eternity until that one will be done. But that is still the plan, basically. That as a wide-arched BMW V8 with an Eaton 112 supercharger on it. To make just a hooligan drift track car machine.
And it also makes me feel a bit better about my lack of finishing projects, because there's other people out there that are like me.
We'll do this again.
Just me.
We'll do this in 10 years, and it'll be exactly. What have you done on your E30? Nothing. What have you done on your Allegro?
Hey, no. One thing I must mention also, because there's always this seemingly increasingly controversy about EVs, and I know I've got my own opinions on EVs with the channel that I do, but you and I, you've driven several. You've owned several. You own an EV right now.
My daily is a Kia Niro, which is. Can I hear all the boos out there?
Yeah.
But as a white goods to get from work to home and back,
commute
as
vehicle.
cheaply as possible, I absolutely can't fault it.
Yeah.
And actually, that car specifically, I'm struggling to fault, because I have driven a lot of EVs, a lot of more high-end ones as well, and. In all honesty, the things that they bring to the party that doesn't have are minimal, not worth the money. Considering it is just a get to work and back car.
Yeah. I love the fact that you do that. You've got an electric car that you use as a daily hack for family and commuting and stuff, and you can see the merits of it.
Yeah.
Doing those jobs that you've set it to
absolutely.
do. But it hasn't stopped you from having a 70s Celica,
no,
a modified BM.
Because they do different jobs, and this is where probably the reason Retropower's never taken on an EV conversion of a classic. It's because for me the jobs the two things do are so different. When I'm going out just to go out for a drive, I want the noise, I want the work, I want to change gear, I want to feel like I'm bringing something to the party, I want to feel like I'm working to make this machine give me that sort of adrenaline rush.
Yeah,
back.
that makes sense. Yeah,
and there's so many factors that give that experience, which I don't find I get from an electric car.
Yeah.
But vice versa, when I get up on a minus 10 degree morning and I want to come to work and I just want to get to work quickly and comfortably, I don't want to be scraping all the ice off the windscreen. I want to press the button in the house and just watch it all defrost. And then I want to get in the car, put the heated seat in that's probably already heated up because I did it from the remote, and just get to work and then get out of it. And the two jobs are so different.
Yeah.
You cannot do one car that does both those things. It's just not possible. Because
it's great to hear someone else who kind of has made those decisions in their head and knows that it doesn't have to be that you're in one camp or the other.
No.
It's not Bloods and Crips, as far as I'm aware.
No, this is it. There's a lot of people, obviously I still get the electric car, a load of rubbish, and I just think, well, why are you saying that? What job are you trying to do with that electric car?
Exactly.
Because you can't say it's just rubbish. It has to be not good at doing its job.
Yeah.
And if the job I want to do with it is giving me a massive adrenaline rush of intoxicating noise and feeling, then an electric car is rubbish. But if it's just getting comfortably to work and back, actually my supercharged E36 is not going to do that very well. No. I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that. So you now what? You used to study the Observer's Book of Cars as a young lad and absorb every fact. Now, the thing about you and your brother is, without your sort of obsession and passions, Retropower, I suspect, would not have become what it's become. No, I mean, it's literally just because of the passion. That's all it was. There was never, anyone who would go, I'm going to set up a business to make money, I know I'm going to set up working on cars, would be a moron, because it's just not a profitable business. But that's not the reason we did it. We just did it because we love messing around with cars, and then we sort of went, hey, should we get a unit and maybe we can do this and earn a bit of money.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. And when you talk to the people that have had cars built by you, I guess it's one of the selling points of Retropower is that the car's going to be built with that huge wad of passion. It's not just get it out the door. It's way more than that. And like you say, if you go into it knowing that commissioning the sort of builds that get commissioned, they are not hedging their bets on it being an investment that will double and triple in value. It's not
just
that
the
kind
passion
of
projects, and they are for us and they are for the customers, and that's as simple as it is. They don't make financial sense. And people always say this, they're like, it doesn't make any sense, that car's not going to be worth that. Well, no. Or why would you get this built? You could buy a Ferrari for that money. Well, yes, but this person doesn't want a Ferrari, so where's the logic in that suggestion? Well, if you want a modified Austin Allegro, buying a Ferrari doesn't solve that itch, does it?
No. I mean, as great as Ferraris are, I don't want a brand new Ferrari.
No.
I want a Type R Allegro.
Yes,
please.
Absolutely, yeah. And a 96 Honda Legend.
Yes, and so thank you very much for the chat. I really, really enjoyed it.